So we've just had our second session of short films here at Romford Short Film Festival, and I now have with me the team behind A Silent Beat. Would you like to introduce yourselves, please, and let the audience know what your role is on the film?
Yes, my name is Brenda, and I was the director and writer of A Silent Beat.
Okay.
I'm Elizabeth, and I was the editor and sound designer.
Okay, this is a nice mix. This is going to be a good one. So, start off, whichever one of you would like to tell us the background to this story, please.
So basically, this was the project for our master's degree. We went to uni together. I did the directing pathway, and she did the sound designing one. I wrote the script back in 2020 around, and I just had it stored. So it's a story that I kind of picked up from then, polished, reworked, and then filmed. And it seemed to fit with what was going on also in that part of my life, just like things crumbling around a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So it felt like it was the right time to get it out of the hard drive. And yeah, we filmed in just 5 days, I think, and everything, it was a quick turnaround. Had like around maybe 2-3 months for everything, prep, shooting, and then post-production. Yeah.
And let's start off with, how did you cast the film?
So basically, I knew that it was a tricky one to get because we needed an actor who was very young and was able to play the drums as well. So for the casting ad, I was kind of concentrating on that, and then having experience with the drums so that we didn't have to like add something. It wouldn't be as complicated because we knew that we wouldn't have a lot of time for rehearsals. We actually just had 1 day of rehearsals. And yeah, so we received a lot of people, which was really nice. And then we held some auditions. I always like to audition people like face to face instead of a self-tape, and especially for this because it feels like it needed to be very emotional and needed to be very private. So I auditioned, I remember around maybe 8 people for the role of David, and then I met the actor whose real name is also David, and he was great. I don't know, the day of the audition I saw something that moved me just from the beginning, so I thought he was a great candidate. And then he said he had been playing drums like since he was a kid, so I was like, yeah, let's go for it.
And technically, this is very ambitious for the for the type of project it is, because you've mixed so many aspects, and particularly at the end when that everything kind of stretches out and that it goes into full screen, but the intercuts. What was technically the most difficult part of the edit to achieve?
Yeah, I think honestly it was the fact that he hadn't had much time to rehearse.
Right.
So basically, we worked with a composer who created the drum score, and he had to listen to that in advance and try to practice it. So he was playing like the recording that, like, basically what you hear is not him playing, it's like a separate recording. And basically I had to like piece together the parts. It was a really hard mix of trying to balance the emotion of when he was drumming with like the actual, like making sure it lined up. Like at some points I was worried that we didn't have enough coverage to like fit with the drum score. So it was like a balance of cutting between that and the other images and stuff like that.
It's a real art to do what you've done.
Thank you.
Because I think there's so much impact in those final moments, and I think that's like one of the things, I just all those intercuts, the extending, of the screen, I just think to myself, just so, I don't know, it's just so, taking on board that it is a student project, etc., or rather, master's project. I just think it's very, very ambitious and very, very well delivered. So, yeah, like, real hands off to you guys for that. Brenda, from your perspective, what was the most difficult part to shoot?
Well, thank you first, and then anything. Everything was quite tricky, honestly. It was 5 hardcore days we had. I think 2 parts scared me the most. Day 1, because we shot all of the drum bits in one day, so he was playing for like 8 hours straight with like, no breaks in between. So kudos to him, he was like brilliant at that. And I think that, again, because we didn't have enough, like we had like half a day of rehearsal because he didn't have a drum kit at home. So he was just listening to the track beforehand. That's all the prep he had. And a day before, when we got the drum set, he practiced with me for like half a day. And then I was freaking out that day because I was like, this is not going to work. And if the drums don't work, then nothing works. So I think when we made it through that bit, like part of my soul rested. And then the second part was that basically the part when he starts unpacking the box at his mom's room was also kind of challenging, but in a very different way, because it was how to help him to get there emotionally. And we were in a very reduced space. We actually, for the house, there's actually 2 houses that we shot in because there weren't enough rooms, and there was like a whole thing with that. So we shot in 2 different houses, and it was just a very, very tiny room. And I mean, it was difficult because it was a lot of time for the cinematography team to put the dolly and the camera. And while that was happening, I didn't want David to like lose focus of what was happening, and just repetition of many takes. So it was just about keeping him in that kind of feeling and a kind of train of thought, so that we helped him with the process instead of like taking him out of there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those 2 were the most difficult ones.
How about yourself? From your perspective, what was the most difficult aspect of the edit for you?
I mean, kind of what I was saying before, like the whole end bit with the drumming. But I know we also spent a lot of time, like, trying to, like, pick the right reaction shots and, like, get the emotion right.
Yes.
Because I feel like, I don't know, there were a lot, like, for example, in the crying scene, there were, like, a lot of different options for, like, ways he was expressing it. So things like that.
When you do your what did you use to edit? What program were you editing?
It was in Premiere, and then I did the sound design in Logic.
What was your workflow? What did it look like for that final sequence? Was it, because if I've been doing that, I'm sure, looking at Lou,
for the final bit with the drumming.
Yeah.
Oh God, I can't even
I can't even imagine the mess.
Yeah, it was very messy. Oh, we made so many different versions of it. We were like testing lots of different versions. Like there was a version where it was like, there was a lot of debate about whether to have it be linear, like have it just be like, okay, we see a scene of him doing this, and then see a scene where he's like happier, and then a scene where, you know what I mean, where it kind of progresses. But we decided it was like more beautiful and messier to have it be like, okay, kind of a bit of progress, then a setback, then like it's kind of messy jumping around, like kind of how grief is. Because that, I mean, I feel like we should mention that this film is about grief and like the stages of grief, and we were trying to show each of those stages and how it's not linear. Yeah,
and you succeeded.
Thank you.
Well done. I mean, that's fantastic. And you know, it did feel like one of those toys that you kind of want. You know, remember those toys that you used to wind up, and then at the end it all just expands into something else. So, fantastic achievement. What are you both working on right now or next?
Well, I mean, as far as films, I mostly do commercial work.
Yes.
I've been doing a bit more sound design, but I also do music, so I'm like expanding my creative palette a bit.
Yeah.
We have been working together in a few music videos this year, and I want to. I have like 2 or 3 projects in mind that hopefully we could do this year. I don't think we'll have enough time, so maybe next year. I have a mini documentary in mind, a dancing film, and like a poetic film. So yeah, it's just like trying to experiment a bit with everything.
Do you prefer to work on music or like narrative?
I personally, actually, I like to joke that I only work on narrative for Brenda. Like, basically, like, I prefer short form. And I think that's actually why this idea was so interesting to me, was because the ending is sort of like a music video in a way. So I think it pushed me out of my comfort zone in the more narrative parts of it. But so I love working with Brenda though. Like, we work on stuff together all the time. We're like the duo that everyone needs to watch out for.
Okay. Does anyone out there have any questions? Oh, hang on. Excuse me.
First of all, I would like to congratulate you, ladies. I was really moved by your film.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask for any inspirations from other films. That's the first question, but I also wanted to say that the scene where brothers are arguing and the music is getting tense and faster is a scene that reminds me of one from Milos Forman film, Amadeus. I'm not sure if you watched this film. It's absolutely something phenomenal. And, you know, from your film to go back to memories of something that I watched years ago, I think it's quite amazing. So, well done. Can you tell me if there was any music, film or music related that inspired you? Any particular scenes? Anything like that?
Thank you so much. Yeah, we had a very specific, we had very specific references for both films and music. So for films, there were 3 on my mind. The first one was A Ghost Story. I don't know if you've watched it, because I feel it's a beautiful, like, the way that grief and death is approached in that film is just very different. It feels very natural, but at the same time very poetic. So I think that was a big inspiration specifically for our cinematographer. We took a lot from that film. And then in terms of what the film was going to be like, in terms of like sound and like organically how it was made, I think the other 2 were Whiplash and I forgot the name of this other film. The Silence, something about silence. It'll come back with me. But yeah, I think I love Whiplash. I love Damien Chazelle's work so much, and from the beginning I did want to do like a hybrid between like something narrative and something music based, because I'm like a big music fan. Even though I'm not a musician myself, I'm just like, I love music to my core. So it needed to have like something very powerful musically there. And just for like, when we were talking about the montages that we were planning, so we divided it in like the 4 stages of grief, basically. And then we asked the composer for the drum solo to, like, I had some conversations with them about what each track should feel like and what each of the stages meant. And I also sent Elizabeth like a very big list of like music that inspired me when I was like sort of thinking about the film or writing about it, what kind of sounds I was picturing for like the rest of the sound design. I thought a lot about Arrival as well. Like it felt kind of Blade Runner, the last one. It felt kind of cold, almost like machine-like, because it was the drum set like calling for him in a way. So yeah, I think those were some of my references. I don't know if you can remember anything else.
You covered them all very well.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say it's quite interesting that you reference Whiplash, because Kevin, one of our judges, put in his comments, like Whiplash, but better.
Can I please hug this person?
So yeah, that was, I just thought that was funny. As soon as you said Whiplash, I was like, oh wow, well done. Any other questions out here? Right, in that case then, if you would mind giving a big round of applause to these lovely ladies, and we wish you very well with whatever you work on next. Thank you very much for bringing your film to us at Romford, and thank you very much for tolerating the questions.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking.
Take care.